This week on The Watchman, a global pandemic cannot stop one simple fact. Jerusalem is a city on the rise. We're joined by the deputy mayor of God's holy city to learn why the best days for Jerusalem still lie ahead.
Today, we really truly have a boom. We have tripled in the number of startups in the last 6 years. We have quadrupled in the number of investment in the city.
Plus, what was life like in Jerusalem 2,000 years ago during the time of Jesus and the Second Temple? We go inside the remains of an ancient Jerusalem neighborhood to find out. All that and much more only right here on The Watchman. And welcome to The Watchman. We talk often here on the show about Israel stepping into its biblical destiny today as a light unto the nations. So, it should come as no surprise that Israeli scientists and researchers are at the forefront of developing a vaccine for COVID-19. We talked to Jonathan Medved of our crowd about some exciting coronavirus research taking place in Israel right now that his company is supporting. Take a look.
Today, we just announced a $12 million investment on our crowd for a company called MIGVAX, MIGVAX, which is essentially an offshoot of a academic institution in the north of Israel, in the Galilee. I guess the redemption will come from the Galilee, which is sort of a great, thematic for us today. And the reality is that this company had developed over the last 4 years a very, very innovative and effective vaccine against coronavirus, not the COVID-19 variety, but against a rather brutal and vicious chicken virus, would you believe? And they were tasked by the Israeli government, who, in this country, chickens are very important, to go develop a vaccine that would save the chickens. So when they started reading, and they were just finishing their work over this 4-year project, and when they started hearing about the coronavirus, the COVID-19, they said, wait a minute, maybe we can use what we've just done and just adjust it to work for humans. And that's what they've done. And we've just announced this $12 million investment. It's an oral vaccine so that you don't require shots. It'll be great for many parts of the world where refrigeration or the kind of injection vaccine doesn't make sense. It's rather broad in terms of its platform utility. So we think that it can be used not just for the the COVID-19, but also for future pandemics.
Now, MIGVAX is starting clinical trials on humans this summer, and we will be sure to keep you posted on all of their progress. Well, Israel is a light unto the nations, and nowhere does that light shine more brightly than in Jerusalem. We recently sat down with the deputy mayor of Jerusalem, Fleur Hassan-Nahoum, to hear about the exciting things that are happening in God's city today and how you can be a part of it. Take a look. Well, Fleur, thanks so much for joining us on The Watchman Show in your city, Jerusalem.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful being here.
Great to have you. Hey, this is becoming one of the hottest tourist destinations in the world. Tell us about how Jerusalem is just booming right now.
It's really amazing because for many years we had, because of the various intifadas that we had, tourism was very, very low, especially for the holy city and also the Holy Land. In the last 10 years, where everything has stabilized, we've seen numbers go up from 2.5 million to 4 million tourists a year. Wow. Now, when you look at the scale of things, or when you look at tourism in Europe, it's actually not even scratching the surface of how many people would come here. Just to give you an idea, we have 150,000 tourists in the old city every week. And what we're doing now in the city is trying to develop the infrastructures that can put up with 10 million tourists within the next 5 to 10 years. Because when you look at, for example, Copenhagen, you know, a European city, they have 40 million tourists a year. I come from Gibraltar, they have 10 million tourists a year. The holy city shouldn't have at least that.
Yes.
And that's what we're gearing towards. We're gearing towards receiving more and more tourists. And we're thrilled by all the Christian tourism, the evangelical tourism that are coming to our city, and people seeing the book come to life. But also, Jerusalem is the city where you have complete freedom of worship. And I have to say, only under our sovereignty will we have freedom of worship for all religions. And so at the moment we're leading a policy in City Hall to encourage tourism of every kind. And I in particular, I'm the tourism portfolio holder. I in particular am very interested in bringing in more evangelical tourism to this country, because I don't want the city to only be a destination for people, for pilgrims. I also want regular Christian families to see that it's also a fun place to come on a family holiday. It's not just, it doesn't just have to be about the book. There's also a modern city. It's also a city where you can really do a lot of fun activities, where you combine biblical tourism and fun kids activities. And that's what I want to broadcast to the world.
Fleur, that's a great point. We'll talk a bit more about the biblical in a second, but look, Jerusalem has a high-tech boom right now.
Absolutely.
Tell us about that. Amazing technology here. In the ancient holy city, there's some very modern things happening. Tell us more about that.
So first of all, let's look at the history of our city. We have 3,000 years of innovation in this city. The way that the walls were built, the way that the stones were cut, was innovative for its day. And that spirit of innovation has continued for 3,000 years. Now, actually, one of the reasons I ended up getting involved in politics was because I became an activist in trying to bring here a chunk of the startup nation. About 7-8 years ago, I got together with a group of younger people than me, students from Hebrew University, who said, well, why can't we have the intellectual capital here in the academic institutions in the city, in the Hebrew University, we have the talent, we have the human capital, why can't we take a chunk? Why can't we be the capital of the startup nation? And so we started with very, very focused activism. They say build it and they will come. The government came, the city came, they started funding startup community, started funding innovation centers in the city. I was very involved in building a bridge between academia and industry. And today we really, truly have a boom. We have tripled in the number of startups in the last 6 years. We have quadrupled in the number of investment in the city. And I'm very proud to say we're just creating at the moment a social impact fund for the city. So investing in businesses, real businesses, but businesses with a conscience, businesses that are actually developing the city and moving the city forward.
Well, jobs are coming to Jerusalem. Industry is coming here. We actually had the U.S. Embassy come here in May 2018. Fleur, talk about the importance of that. We were told the sky was falling, that everything was going to break loose when the embassy moved. It did not happen. Talk about why that was a game changer and why other countries should move their embassies here to the ancient and ancestral capital of Israel.
Well, it's actually, you have no idea how positive the moving of the embassy has been at every level. The embassy move was significant because the American government acknowledged that a country has the right to choose its own capital city. And to be smart enough to know that moving the embassy here does not impede any type of peace deal. No. It doesn't impede it at all. On the contrary, I say to everybody who confronts me with this question, do you ever imagine a scenario in which any future peace deal will mean that Jerusalem is not the capital of the state of Israel?
And not united.
Do you ever imagine that could be? Okay. So everybody says no. I say, so then why is it impeding peace? Yeah. You just recognize a reality. And so what the American government did is start a domino effect. Because after that, Guatemala, I speak fluent Spanish, so I'm very much in touch with all these wonderful Central and South American countries. Guatemala, Honduras have got a foot in now with a trade office. Australia opened a trade office. Brazil is talking about moving here. If the Americans would never have done this, we wouldn't even be talking about it.
Thanks again to Deputy Mayor Fleur Hassan-Nahoum for joining us. Folks, she is dynamic, just like the city she represents. Well, coming up, we're staying in Jerusalem to explore an ancient neighborhood from the time of Jesus. You will not want to miss this. Don't move.
It all begins with words uttered by individuals, repeated by others, and became a philosophy, an ideology.
When you become anything without realizing that it's happening, it's called brainwash.
I hated America. The Jews were the reason for all the evil in the world.
This we must not allow to happen again.
In the Bible, God calls on believers to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Now you can celebrate your role as a watchman on the walls of God's chosen city with this special one-of-a-kind bracelet. Designed and crafted exclusively for Kufi by Ethiopian Jews who immigrated to Israel, this stunning bracelet symbolizes the biblical mandate to stand in defense of Jerusalem and raise your voice for Zion's sake. In honor of Israel's 72nd anniversary, for your gift of $72 or more, we'll send you this eye-catching Medja Maria bracelet that showcases your love for Israel and its eternal capital, Jerusalem. This exclusive Made in Israel bracelet is available while supplies last. So visit www.kufi.org/bracelet to receive yours today.
And welcome back to the Watchman from Jerusalem. It's been 52 years since the Jewish people regained their ancestral capital and made Jerusalem a beacon to the nations once again. Now I say once again because this city was the capital of Israel 3,000 years ago, and still 2,000 years ago, during the time of Jesus, it remained the center of Jewish worship, culture, and life. That great history is on full display at the Wool Archaeological Museum here in Jerusalem. Our Watchman correspondent, Raj Nair, paid them a visit recently and saw firsthand the triumph and tragedy of Jewish life here under the Roman occupation during the Second Temple period. Take a look.
One of my favorite parts about the old city of Jerusalem is that down every little alleyway or hidden staircase, there's more than likely something of huge historic or biblical significance that you could just walk right by and have no idea that it's there. And where we're going today is a perfect example of that. It's called the Wool Museum. So, what's down there? Let's go find out. Yoel, thank you for showing us around this incredible, beautiful place. So tell us, what exactly are we looking at?
First of all, we are in Jerusalem, in the holy city of Jerusalem, in the Jewish quarter of the old city. And here we are looking at a museum that is called the Wool Museum for Antiques, the Herodian Quarter. Herodian Quarter, you know the name Herod?
Of course.
Very famous name. What you're looking here is a house. Small house, it's a huge house. We are in the basement. Up above there's one floor and there's a second floor. There's a big family living here. How do we know? Look at what we see here. We find one mikveh here. A mikveh is a ritual bath. You know what it is? Purity, impurity. The mikveh gets its water from rain. We have another mikveh over there. Another mikveh down there below this arch, and the fourth one over here. That's what made us decide that the people who lived in this house were priests.
And so this place is undoubtedly 2,000 years old or more, correct?
Undoubtedly.
And so you have an extremely Jewish house here. So the idea that this city didn't have Jewish people is crazy. I mean, it's literally right in front of you.
Raj, do you use a mikveh?
No.
Do the Muslims use a mikveh?
No.
The Jews are the ones who use a mikveh. Every time you find a mikveh, and that needs to be very clear, a mikveh has to have at least 1 cubic meter of water. 3 feet on 3 feet on 3 feet of water. That's the minimum, and the water has to come from rain or from a spring. It cannot be pumped water. These things are very clear. This is a Jewish house. The mosaics are very interesting because you can see in the mosaics there are different figures. There are waves there, and there are other geometrical. But there's no face of a man or an animal because it's forbidden by the Torah to put those.
Yet another indication that this was a Jewish home.
Absolutely right.
So tell me the modern story of this place. How did this get revealed?
Actually, the modern period starts in 1967. 1967, the big war, the 6 Days War. You remember that big miracle when the Lord gave us Jerusalem back in 6 days. I was 14 years old. When the archaeologists came to Jerusalem, to the old city of Jerusalem, they found 75% of the houses, they were bombed by Jordanians. There was all destruction around here. For them, it was the Garden of Eden because they could dig whatever they want. And that's what they did. They started to dig. One bit after that, they found one layer below the other one. The first layer will be, of course, the Turkish period, Ottoman period, that goes back to 1517. Before that, we go to the time of the Mameluke. Before that, we go to the time of the Crusaders. Before the Crusaders, we go to the time of the first Islamic period. Before that, we go to the Roman period. And this is the Roman period. This is the 1st century AD.
This is stunning, but there's more.
There is a lot more. This is one of 6. Let me show you some.
The rebirth of modern Israel is one of the greatest miracles in history. Despite centuries of tragedies and abuses, the Jewish people are once again thriving in their ancient and ancestral homeland. QAEDA's new ebook, Israel, 70 Years of Miracles, shows how God's destiny for Israel has been woven throughout her history, and how Christians are serving a divine purpose in blessing and defending His land. This free ebook is an invaluable resource that lays out Israel's remarkable story of resilience and how Christians can be a part of this modern-day miracle of God. Visit www.qfi.org/ebook to receive your free ebook today and join QAEDA to add your voice to a movement of over 8 million Christians speaking out for Zion's sake.
Well, these houses just keep going and going and going. And what you can tell is these were definitely the homes of very rich people. So what can we learn from that?
When we walked through, one house after the other, we saw mikvahs. We saw very beautiful vessels. We saw which kinds of vessels they were using. We spoke about the fact that there were priests, definitely priests. Like I said, in this direction, 150 yards is a temple. And we see there are a lot of mikvahs, that means that work in a temple. What kind of vessels? We saw different kinds. One of them were stone vessels, and the others were clay. When a vessel gets impure, with the clay, you break the vessel, you cannot use it again. The stone vessel does not get impure. But these are very expensive vessels, so these people were rich. We saw another thing. We saw the menorah that the man, one of the people he drew, and it's exactly like it's described in the Torah. But one thing we know, look how beautiful the houses here. Look how they're decorated. Look at the fresco on the walls, just like in Masada. Rich they are, and probably not very honest. Maybe a little corrupted. You said the mosaics were painted? They were not painted. They imported the stones. These are red stones originally, or blue stones, or the yellow stones from Greece, from Cyprus, from other places. And the artists themselves were imported to Israel. To build a mosaic like this was the cost of buying a new Lamborghini.
Wow. So that tells you a lot of the political situation around the time of the destruction when Jesus would have been here. It wasn't that, Jesus was unique in criticizing these folks.
Not at all. There were a lot of them. A lot of them that went down to the desert to be far away from corruption. A lot of them have fought. The others, they were fighting here all the time.
Well, everything you can see here is just beautiful.
That is true. But like we said before, the word ashes turns to glory, but glory can turn to ashes. From these beautiful houses, let me show you what happened to Jerusalem. So what you see here is a wall that was burnt down. Do you see the marks of fire?
Yeah.
There are black stains all over the wall. All those beautiful houses that we saw up there were burnt down, all were full with ashes. We gathered the ashes. We put it here in a box so you could see it. Jerusalem was completely destroyed.
This is incredible. This is organic material from the moment of the destruction of Jerusalem. Absolutely. That's mind-blowing.
That is mind-blowing.
Wow.
But let's think of what is above us. There's a brand new yeshiva. This is a museum, a very unique museum in the world. You see, when the archaeologists dug here, they thought, how are we going to preserve it all? This area is very dear. It's, people build houses, millions of dollars. How are we going to keep it? They found the best solution. They built pillars and built on top a very big school for Torah. Thousands of pupils studying out there, and we here are touring the city of Jerusalem for 2,000 years.
What a way to wrap that up. Here we have literally the ashes of the destruction of Jerusalem. Absolutely. And right above us, a living, active Jewish community inside the Jewish quarter of the old city of Jerusalem. Yoel, amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, my man.
Thanks again to Watchman correspondent Raj Nair and Yoel Freiman for bringing the Bible and history to life. Well, coming up after the break, my final thoughts on the 2020 QAEDA National Summit. Folks, we are going virtual this year, and after the break, you'll get all the details on how you can join us. Stick around.
Today, we are seeing the rise of an old enemy wearing a new mask. Once, anti-Semitism was displayed by those in white hoods or wearing the twisted cross of the swastika. But today, this old hatred hides in plain sight. Only a decade ago, anti-Semites were shunned and despised. Now, this appalling bigotry has a platform on Twitter and is applauded in the public square. Anti-Semites rail against Israel on our college campuses. They break bread with elected officials. CUFI was built for such a time as this. We will not let this darkness dim our light, for Christians are a light unto the world, and Israel is a light unto the nations. So shine bright. Shine the light on anti-Semitism that hides in plain sight, from churches to college campuses, from state capitals to Congress. We at Christians United for Israel seek to be a light in the darkness. As light conquers darkness, so shall we conquer this anti-Semitic scourge. Join us. Don't curse the darkness. Shine the light.
Jerusalem is the city that God has chosen as His dwelling place forever. This month, we want to remind you of your role as a watchman on the walls of Jerusalem with a beautiful piece of artwork, free, with your gift of any amount. This stunning painting was designed by one of Israel's premier artists. It features the city of Jerusalem along with powerful words from the prophet Isaiah. With your gift of any amount, you'll receive this one-of-a-kind painting suitable for framing and a daily reminder of your role as a watchman on the walls of Jerusalem. Visit www.qfi.org/give to receive your exclusive painting for a gift of any amount while supplies last. And join QFI to add your voice to a movement of over 8 million Christians speaking out for Zion's sake.
And welcome back. As you could see, much of this week's show was filmed in Jerusalem before COVID-19 travel restrictions went into place. Now, Jerusalem will be back open for business very soon, and when it does, we will be there. In the meantime, you know that our QAEDA National Summit was supposed to be held on June 28th to the 30th at the Washington Convention Center in D.C. Because of COVID-19 restrictions, we cannot all gather at the D.C. Convention Center this June, but we will be gathering online for the QAEDA Virtual Summit. It's our first ever virtual summit, and you will still get all of the great speakers, the entire QAEDA experience that you've come to expect every summer at our Washington Summit. But now you can do it from the comfort of your living room. So go to cufi.org to register, and I look forward to seeing all of you June 28th to the 30th online. Folks, I honestly believe that we'll reach more people than ever around the world with this virtual format. Remember, the Word of God says that He works all things together for the good of those who love Him and are called according to His purpose. Our team at QAEDA truly loves the God of Israel, and I have no doubt that we are called according to His purpose for such a time as this. Well, thanks for joining us this week in Jerusalem. Until next time, hang in there. God bless you. And remember, never hold your peace.